set, hut, hut.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sounds of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50 to 10 to 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tavon Austin.
But Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth.
It's Mountaineer pride.
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
We've no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night.
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into another live stream here on the Country Roads webcast. And great news day today, something I think we've all been waiting for, right? We've been waiting on movement on this roster. Who are we going to add in the portal after we've seen a lot of departures? We've been waiting to see who are we going to add to the coaching staff. And we got some reports on who West Virginia is set to hire, some people that may be coming over from Jackson State. And we also know some people that won't be on the staff. So we know some people that are going to be, some people that are not going to be. And so that's a little bit of a coaching staff update we can get into. And then, as I said there, another transfer portal update here as well. Put out one this morning, a pre-recorded video discussing Traylon Ray entering the portal, but told you guys felt like it wouldn't be long till we started having a transfers in list. Now we indeed do, with one commit already in tow, and West Virginia's had several guys in on visits this weekend, so we may be seeing more coming in the near future, and we'll talk about that as well. But let's lead it off first with the coaching news. But before we get to it, I want to remind you guys that are in here live, or if you're watching this on a playback, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. That helps us a ton with the YouTube algorithm. If you're a WVU football fan that want to follow how this coaching staff shakes out, how this roster builds for the upcoming season and the Rich Rod 2.0 era, be sure to subscribe here to the channel. We'll be covering it all here on the CRW. And if you are in here live, be sure to throw your thoughts in the chat. Any questions you got there, comments, try and touch on some of those throughout here, and really appreciate that engagement as always, guys. But let's start it off here with the coaching staff update. I think early this morning, this broke. Matt Zenitz, I believe, is who had it first. And we'll lead off with this because I think chronologically this is what happened first, prior to later in the day getting the transfer commit. And then we can talk a little bit about that and maybe some other guys West Virginia's targeting. And then towards the tail end of the stream, I want to talk a little bit about the way the roster sits right now, because we can look at maybe some of the positions West Virginia needs to add pieces to and such, and moving forward. But as far as the coaching staff, West Virginia is going to hire 2 coaches from Jacksonville State. And I think both of these are really good ads for multiple reasons. We'll talk a little bit about both here momentarily. But Matt Zenitz from CBS Sports /247 is the one who originally broke this. And of course hasn't been officially confirmed from the university yet. So you always got to, consider this kind of just a report until that does happen, until those official announcements start coming out from WVU and their press releases. But West Virginia expected to hire wide receivers coach Ryan Garrett from Jacksonville State and tight ends coach / inside receivers coach Michael Nicewander from Jacksonville State. Both helped Jack State rank 12th in the nation in scoring last year. He adds there, I think both good pickups, multiple reasons. Michael Nicewander, he obviously is kind of highly regarded, still a young coach, but he played at Alabama. I think he blocked for Derrick Henry and their offense. He was known as, I believe, Highway 46 was his nickname because the lanes he would open for the run game there. He was kind of their H-back guy that was really a key cog in their run game at Alabama when they were having a lot of success. And then since he's got into the coaching ranks, obviously coaching tight ends, has experience there and has done a good job with it. And then Ryan Garrett, I think, is a young up-and-coming coach as well at the receiver position. And for me, the big bonus there is maybe that helps you land some of these transfer receivers that we've talked about in previous updates. I think it was the transfer portal update I put out this morning, actually, that I was talking a little bit about Cam Vaughn, who's been rumored to be on campus for a visit this weekend, and Gerard Bowie as well, who's from, of course, Martinsburg that we talked about. Maybe you got a better chance of landing both those that you have their receivers coach now at WVU. That can't hurt in that aspect. We'll see what happens, but hopefully officially announced soon by the university. We'll start seeing this and more hires come out, but we do know it looks like Ryan Garrett coming to coach receivers, Michael Nicewonder coming to coach tight ends, maybe inside receivers as well, which I think leaves a lot of people wondering, where's Blaine Stewart fit in? I think we'll have to just wait and see what his title ends up being. Who knows what it could end up being. The staff assignments and how they shake out is always interesting to see. I would expect both these guys to have the same titles they did at Jack State, and expect Blaine Stewart to move on to another position, or maybe just have a title of an assistant of some sort. We'll see how they decide to do that. But nonetheless, we do know a little bit more of the staff. What we know currently is reported, of course, 100% is Rich Rod and seems like Blaine Stewart, and then reported now Ryan Garrett and Michael Nicewonder. Other than that, the only other report that I've had, and I think I've showed you guys before, and they've done a good job covering it over at Rivals, the WVsports.com site. If you go and you click on their hot board on their main thing and you scroll down here to defensive coordinator, their latest update still points to Jeremiah Johnson being the hire for West Virginia as defensive coordinator. As they say, their sources say he's expected to join the Mountaineer program following the bowl game on December 28th. So if you're wondering why there hasn't been more staff hires, I think really on the defensive side, Rich Rod's probably waiting to get that defensive coordinator hire in before he goes, on any position coaches on that side too much. But it seems like that may be the holdup, because Louisiana Tech wasn't going to be in a bowl game, if you remember, or Marshall had to opt out. Then they had to hop into a bowl game, and they play here in 6 days. So a little bit after Christmas, maybe we'll hear about the defensive coordinator, according to what they're saying over on WV Rivals here. Good reporting there by Vernon covering this throughout the coaching search. So that's the other rumor. And then as far as coaches that we know will not be coming, some ones that we were looking at maybe coming over from Jacksonville State, there were a couple, right, that we were wondering maybe if they would follow Rich Rod, some guys he had been with for a long time, some guys that had been up-and-comers with him, both in those categories. But as far as one that had been there with him for a long time, and I was kind of worried that this would go this way after the fact that Jacksonville State hired Clinton Trickett, of course, former Mountaineer, to be their offensive coordinator. I wondered if Rick Trickett would then stay there. And, of course, that was confirmed today. Jacksonville State putting out in a release, Rick Trickett staying on as offensive line coach at Jacksonville State. Obviously, a little bit disappointing, because I think he was a key cog the first time Rich was here. They worked really well together, and he also is very, much of that hard edge mentality and a very great coach. And I was hoping to see him return, but I also understand him wanting to stay and coach with his son. And I think that we will still pick up a good offensive line hire that will do a great job for Rich Rod in his system. I truly believe that. I know some of the names have been mentioned have been Garen Justice. Hopefully, that would be one that would be near the top of the list, if not at the top of the list now, if you can try and steal him away from SMU. Don't know if you'd be able to do that or not. I know there's other names like Ryan Stanchek, Herb Hand, but I believe Herb Hand was just hired at, was it UCF or Florida State, one of the two. So I don't know if you'd be able to get him still yet, but those are guys that have history, obviously, with Rich Rodriguez that have been brought up, but they could surprise and go outside of the tree and hire an offensive line coach that we don't know. And I guess you can never rule out Matt Moore potentially returning. I think that would be hard to believe now after the tweet situation, of course, and we talked a little bit about that previously on another live stream, but you never know. But we do know Rick Trickett not coming. And then in addition to that, from Football Scoop, we also now know, similar to what happened kind of, I think, with Rod Smith, except for the fact of Rod Smith really went to Marshall probably because he wanted a chance to call plays, and maybe Rich Rod just have other plans for the offensive coordinator. What I've heard about how they're trying to shape up the staff is Rich Rod's really kind of going to go cheap on the offensive side because he knows what he needs to do to be successful there, and then spend more money on the defensive staff, which I think is a great choice. We know we need to improve the defense in a major way. But we also was hoping that the running backs coach from Jacksonville State, Rod McDowell, would be following Rich Rod. He's a really good up-and-coming running backs coach, but unfortunately, looks like Tony Gibson has beat him to the punch, or maybe Rich Rod has some interesting plans there. And there is a theory that has been floated around that I think is a good one in regards to that. I'll tell you that in a second. But as you hear from Football Scoop, Tony Gibson over at Marshall adding Rod McDowell as his running backs coach, sources told Football Scoop. McDowell served in the same role at Jack State, where he helped the Gamecocks win a CUSA championship, of course. So Rod McDowell, also the running backs coach from Jack State, won't be coming. So there's two coaches we know won't be coming. Well, technically three if you want to include Rod Smith, who's the offensive coordinator at Marshall now, Rick Trickett staying at Jack State, and then Rod McDowell going to Marshall as well. But I think that there is an interesting theory about who West Virginia could then be targeting for running backs coach, because we still need an offensive coordinator as well, right? I know Travis Trickett's name has been one that's been floated around. We've talked about it in the past here. But interesting theory that I saw today mentioned somewhere, and I can't remember where it was I saw it mentioned, but what about if you could get Jawan Sider away from Penn State and get him to come be running backs coach / offensive coordinator? Yeah, I don't know if you could potentially do it. You got money to spend right now. Obviously, we've seen the money that Rich Rod has for his assistants towers, head and shoulders above what Dale Brown had. So maybe you could try and make a move like that. I think that those may be the two names you're looking at for offensive coordinator, Travis Trickett or Jawan Sider, unless they surprise and do something different. Like I said, you never know what they could have up their sleeve. We're just kind of all looking at names that have ties to Rich Rod or ties to West Virginia, I think, and rightfully so. He's probably going to go after a lot of those guys, but we do know the ones that won't be coming, and we do know a couple that will there from the reports today, as far as Michael Nice-Wonder and Ryan Garrett coming, Rick Trickett staying at Jack State, Rod McDowell going to Marshall with Rod Smith and Tony Gibson. And we'll see how the rest of the West Virginia coaching staff shapes up. But as it does take shape, we'll continue to report on it here on the CRW. Now we got to get into the latter portion of the December 22nd transfer portal update, as we put one out this morning covering the departure of Traylon Ray. Now we got to cover our first transfer in. Exciting news here to talk about, something we've all been waiting for. But first, got to take a swig of my coffee, guys. Then I will get to the transfer portal update. Sorry, guys. Apologies. My throat got a little dry there, babbling on. But really appreciate everybody popping in here tonight. Got good engagement. See over 100 people in here tonight, over 150 right now, actually. So really appreciate that. If all you guys in here, man, just take a second, hit the X on the live chat. You can pop right back in there. But while you're out, just hit that thumbs up button. Helps us a ton with that YouTube algorithm. Then you can pop right back in chat. And I will try and get to some of your all's questions in the chat here momentarily after I hit the transfer portal update. But I appreciate you guys. And if you're not subscribed here, be sure to do it. We'll be covering the coaching staff as it shapes up, transfer portal news, all of that here on the CRW. And if you'd love to support us monthly, we'd really appreciate that. Helps keep the mics recorded and the cameras rolling. And if you hit that join button down below for as low as $1.99 a month, you'll get player grades after each game, snap counts, depth chart projections, film reviews, game rewatch commentaries, all kinds of good stuff there. And we really appreciate that. But like I said, the fast, easy, and free way that you can support us is just hitting that thumbs up button and being assured that you're subscribed here. Nonetheless, let's talk a little bit about the transfer portal update as far as what West Virginia has landed. We can now add a transfers in list to our transfer portal tracker here throughout the offseason. And let's talk about Jordy Scruggs, who was one that we covered in a previous update when I was talking on stream, that would be visiting. Handful of guys that was visiting, and Jordy Scruggs was one, and he was a corner that we were hoping to land. We know we have to rebuild the secondary. He's a guy that played the slot. He could be a great, slot corner, nickel corner, whatever you want to call it. But all Sunbelt cornerback transfer Jordy Scruggs has committed to West Virginia. Matt Zenitz, again, reporting this CBS Sports /247, 70 tackles and interception this year. So there you see the report there announcing it. And then he, of course, confirmed it later on his social media and has since been talking good stuff about WVU. As you see here, his commitment graphic, if you guys want to follow him here, he's at Jordy Scruggs, which personally, I love the name. His name's Jordan. That's a great name, obviously. And Jordy, funny enough, that's what my mom used to call me when I was little. All the time she would call me Jordy for short, I guess. And that's what he goes by, I think, is Jordy Scruggs. But there's his commitment graphic on social media. And big pickup, I think, because a lot of people were after him. I know Virginia Tech had offered. Colorado was trying to get him, so he beat out Coach Prime for this one. And, Rich Rod's first transfer commit beats out a couple of, a border rival, a former rival in Virginia Tech. And then, of course, beating out Coach Prime, who will face in Morgantown this year as well, to land Jordy Scruggs, which is nice to see. as a little bit of information on him here. Obviously, I can't share the screen on this because it's from, PFF, but I can tell you that his grades were really good at South Alabama as far as on their defense. He was their highest overall graded player that played at least 25 snaps on the season with an 81 overall defensive grade. And then in coverage, he had an 80.9 coverage grade, so super high grade there in coverage as well, did Jordy Scruggs. And now what I can do for you guys, though, is I can pull up our transfer portal tracker we've been using to track this stuff throughout the offseason and show you guys we now have the transfers in list with Jordy Scruggs on there. And I think soon he'll be joined by some others. We've got some guys that have been on campus on visits. Of course, you guys have probably been following along to see the transfer out list, which I have been able to add some destinations of some guys. TJ Crandall committed to Oregon State. Will Dixon committed to Rhode Island, and we may see Day Farmer again, who committed to UCF. And funny enough, because he was committed to Pitt in the recruiting cycle, flipped to UCF, was committed to UCF all the way through, and then on signing day flipped to WVU last year, and then now hits the portal, goes back to UCF, where West Virginia will probably have to face him under new coach Scott Frost. But of course, West Virginia with a transfer in of their own now, Jordy Scruggs, and we'll continue to update that throughout. And as we talk about those transfer updates, one of the players that was on a visit that has been, of course, public with that we can definitely 100% confirm is Fred Davis, a transfer defensive back from Jack State, was in Morgantown, put up a picture here of the facility, said loved Morgantown. So we know he made his visit, even put the hashtag Hard Edge, which, like I said, would be another good addition to the secondary, which is something that we need at WVU. And pull up his profile here from Jack State. And as you can see, cornerback would be a, 1 year of eligibility left, I believe, as he was a redshirt junior this year at Jack State, but good length, 6'1", 192, and has experience already in the Power 5, previously playing at UCF and Clemson, as you see there in his bio, 29 career games over 3 seasons at Clemson, UCF, and Jack State. Played as a true freshman in 2020, highlighted by 2 tackles and 2 pass breakups in the ACC championship game against Notre Dame, as obviously Notre Dame played in, the ACC that year for the COVID year. But still impressive resume there by Fred Davis. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he's been in on a visit, so maybe West Virginia could pick him up and we could add him to our transfers in list later. Other than that, the only other thing that I had to talk about as far as those transfers was that there are other players that were visiting on campus as well. As I mentioned, Cam Vaughn has been rumored to be one that hasn't, he hasn't come out publicly and stated that yet, but that's been floating around. And if so, that would be absolutely huge. You guys heard me talk about him in the transfer portal update I put out earlier this morning. Super talented receiver, and we need them obviously after some of the players that we've lost. So fingers crossed he is truly on campus. And then I think there's a rumor of a tight end from Jack State as well, who obviously is, I think, from West Virginia. There were 2 or 3 players on that roster from West Virginia. I believe he's one, so got to like our chances to maybe pick him up, as it looks like the other tight end we were going after, Carson Kent's probably going to commit to Oklahoma after he's announcing his commitment tomorrow following his visit there. So it would be good to at least get that tight end from Jacksonville State now to add to the roster. Those are some ones that I've heard about that are on campus visiting that I know of currently. And then I think there is an offensive lineman. I believe he's from Tulane, if I'm not mistaken, that West Virginia's been targeting. I think that he's rumored to be on a visit, and we'll see what happens with that. I would love to get an offensive lineman. We're going to need it. Because the last thing I want to talk about, guys, and then I will just catch up with some of your comments before we wrap up, is I want to take a look at the roster as it stands currently with the players that have graduated and with the guys that have hit the portal. I tried to update this, and you guys know throughout the offseason, once we hit January, I'll start doing roster updates. Once freshmen start enrolling in campus, once transfers start enrolling on campus, I'll be going through and updating this roster. But for now, I wanted to update it, and just because of how many players that have transferred out because of the coaching situation, just to kind of see where we are and see probably where we need to add guys. And we still will have true freshmen that will be added on here. Like I said, I just don't like to put people on here until they're actually officially on campus enrolled in the university, just because you never know what could happen. And also, as is always the case in my transfer updates, my roster updates, as I always tell you guys, only really track the scholarship players, so no walk-ons on here, although there may be some walk-ons that end up being contributors. You never know, but this is what we're looking at thus far. So at quarterback, Nico and Khalil is kind of what we have. And we'll have Scotty Fox, the true freshman, coming in also. So 3 scholarship guys. You still got some walk-on guys left there on the roster. So you got to think Coach Rodriguez is going to bring in a transfer quarterback. I think it's going to be interesting to see if they go after one in this cycle and try and bring one in, or if they wait until the spring cycle and see what they want to do. But as I shared with you guys some of the comments that he made on Sportsline in an interview with Greg Hunter the other night, he does like a couple quarterbacks on the roster, and you got to think it's these 2 right here that are kind of the last 2 left standing, save for the freshman coming in and Scotty Fox. So we'll see what shakes out there at quarterback. You got to think it's going to be open competition at pretty much all positions. Running back right now, we have Jaheim still returning, and fingers crossed, he stays home. I think he can be super explosive, have a great year in this offense. I heard Steve Slayton say, I think he was on the Touchdown City podcast, that he spoke to Jaheim, so hopefully that encourages him. Obviously, a guy that was a star in Rich Rod's offense, and looks like thus far he's staying put, so that's great news. Can really use him. But we have him. We'll have the 2 redshirt freshmen, Dewar Hubbard and Trayvon Dunbar. We'll have the incoming guys, DeAndre Desenor being one of them that I'm really excited about, so we'll see what happens there. But, you couldn't rule that out as well. You never know what areas West Virginia could target. And then receiver, where it's a little thin after the loss of, Traylon Ray, Hudson Clement. But like I said, can't rule out maybe the possibility of some of those guys that are in the portal returning. We'll see what happens. But as it stands currently, you'd have Jaden Bray back as a senior. You'd have Preston Fox back as a senior, which I think Preston Fox staying on, his return is probably being underrated and underheralded a little bit, because if he decides to stay, I think it's going to be big, because he is really good at perimeter blocking, which is going to be paramount in Rich Rod's scheme, and which is going to lead to those explosive runs we saw downfield in the Rich Rod heydays of his offense. And Preston Fox could be very good at that. And then I think Jarrell Williams, just quietly, what a program guy, been around so long. And I was glad to see him, finally get in on the action, catch a nice pass in the bowl game even, and hope he sticks around. And maybe, finally this will be the year where he comes into his own. You have Rodney Gallagher still back. He'll be a junior. TJ Johnson. And then the young guys, the redshirt freshmen, Brandon Raymond, and you guys know the one I'm most excited about from down here where I'm at in Mercer County, Dom Collins. I think he can be a stud. He could be the Darius Raynaud of this Rich Rod offense, guys. I mean, we're talking 4.2 speed. This guy could be lethal, and I hope we get to see him return kicks as well. So that's kind of what we're looking at receiver. Probably see West Virginia target some guys to bring in there. Obviously, we've talked about Cam Vaughn. Should be a high target for us there, a high priority. We'll see if we can get him from Jack State. Tight end, what we have left over is Traylon Davis, who will be a senior. Greg Genros, who we brought in from JUCO last year, but didn't really get to play, was still getting acclimated. We have Rich Brahamson, Noah Braham still on the roster, and Jackson Marco, who played a lot this season as a freshman, will be a sophomore. And the offensive line is where it's rather thin on scholarship players right here, guys. Let me take a swig of my coffee real quick as I run through this roster. Get my throat dry here, but we'll continue to talk about this momentarily. And like I said, still, at receiver, don't discount. There will be some freshmen coming in, getting into the mix there too. Just like I said, don't have them on here yet. We'll add them in once they add and get onto campus in the spring, and I'll do these roster updates, periodically as players enroll, whether they're transfers or freshmen. But just kind of wanted to go over where we stand before those roster updates start in January, most likely. But the offensive line, what we have returning after, the transfer departures and the graduations, you can see kind of thin. But some guys that I'm really excited about, Kyle Alltuner and Xavier Bosley being the very top of the list of guys I'm excited about. And I think both of those two guys should be returning starters. Obviously they didn't start, but the two guys that are returning from the previous roster that can be starters, I think Kyle Alltuner would be a good center. I think Bosley is going to be great at right tackle. And I think you just have to, pick your spots in between there. Landon Livingston showed, some good work at center this year, but I think Alltuner should take over there, maybe move Livingston to guard. I did that on this roster currently just to have someone there. Left tackle, I think we're going to need to pick somebody up to, take on that role, quite frankly, unless you can slide maybe Nick Cray over there or Justin Terry. Lucas Austin maybe could do it. We'll see what happens. You do have a big-time freshman coming in, Aiden Buchanan, who's like 6'9", 330. And, he's a young guy that can maybe factor in the mix, but I got to think West Virginia is going to add at least one or two offensive linemen via the transfer portal before it's all said and done. I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody added in that could play that left tackle spot. I think, Johnny Williams' departure kind of hurts a little bit more than you thought previously when you see it here in black and white on paper in this roster as it stands currently with these scholarship players, but that's what the offense is kind of looking like at this point in time. Let's talk a little bit about the defense now. Defensive line. We do have, decent amount of guys on the defensive line, but not a ton of guys with experience, say for, maybe a handful. Torres Simmons has played a lot, but hasn't, had a ton of reps. He's played a lot of special teams, have been kind of a reserve guy. But, he'll be a senior back. Zachariah Keith is going to be a redshirt sophomore. Same with Orion Fisher, and Makai Byerson will be a redshirt freshman. Defensive tackle, Eddie Vesterinen, looks like he's going to stick around and come back after redshirt and sitting out thus far as it stands today. Like I said, subject to change, obviously, but still could have Eddie V and Asani Redwood, 2 seniors back there. Elijah Kinsler, a freshman that played some this past season, will be a sophomore. And then you'll have Hammond Russell as a senior. And then Corey McIntyre Jr., who a player that the previous staff was really excited about, I think will be still a key cog in the future. Could even see him maybe starting there. We'll see what happens. And then Nate Gabriel's another true freshman. They got some reps this year, so he at least has some experience. Linebacker is where it's a little bit thin now. I think you're definitely going to have to add another guy here as well, especially after the loss of Lathan and Trotter. You do have Reed Carrico back for one more season, which I think is big. He really stood out and played well his first year here at WVU, so I'm glad he's sticking around. Ben Cutter's played a lot also, but you'll have 2 seniors, Carrico and Kate Beiser. You'll have Ben Cutter, as I said, there as a junior. And then you'll have 2 redshirt freshmen, Curtis Jones and Ricky Williams. And then, of course, it was the Spear on the previous roster. It's kind of unknown where this will fit in, so I just left it as a Spear currently. But Zay Jennings was still a young guy that the previous staff was really high on, played a lot on special teams, did get some action at Spear later in the season. He'll be a sophomore. And then the defensive backfield, and you can see why West Virginia is targeting a lot of corners and safeties as we get here. At cornerback, you really only have Spells, who will be a senior. You have Jordan Jackson, whose brother Josiah has already hit the portal. You have Keon Washington, Chris Henry, and Keyshawn Robinson, who are 3 redshirt freshmen. So certainly you don't want to go into it with, 1 redshirt, a sophomore, 3 redshirt freshmen, and a senior who hasn't really shown a ton to this point in his career. So you definitely got to go after some defensive back targets. That's where, Jordy Scruggs will come in. Some of these other guys West Virginia's going after, hopefully they can land. Fred Davis that we talked about that's in on a visit would help a lot. But then when you get into the safety spot here, we can see at free safety, virtually nothing. Aiden Nelson's there on the roster, who's also obviously a 2-way guy playing basketball again now, was just re-added to the basketball roster. Now the football's over, but he'll be there at the safety spot. And then you have 2 other young guys, Jacob Boyce, who played some this season, so he'll be a sophomore. He did get to play some late in the season, so at least he has a little bit of experience. And then Jason Cross will be a redshirt freshman. Kicker, no scholarship kickers on the roster currently. You do have RJ Cochran, who the previous staff liked a lot, has a strong leg. You have Nate Flower as well, but both those guys currently only walk-ons. Oliver Straw will be back for a senior season, and your long snapper, Austin Brinkman, graduated, so need to add somebody there. Maybe you have a walk-on that can do it. But I did also see Jacksonville State's long snapper hit the portal. So maybe you add him. I think he has 1 or 2 years of eligibility left. I saw him post. So maybe you target him. You do need a long snapper, it looks like. So as you see the roster, you see there's going to be a lot of spots to fill here. So this is only the first of what's going to be very many transfer portal updates that cover transfers in for West Virginia. Like I told you guys, when this thing first started, I see West Virginia adding, at least 30, 40 players probably at minimum. And then you see a lot of these transfer departures, I think that definitely holds true. So, just wait and see, guys. This is the first of many. Like I said, there's a lot of guys visiting that have visited this week, and we'll see what happens there. But that's what I had for you, the coaching staff update and the transfer portal update. Wanted to get in on that stuff there. Let's see, did we get another one here tonight? Looks like we got something coming in. Let me check the Twitter sphere. So that's awesome. I can do a transfer portal update live, guys, and we can add that to it. Yes, indeed. We did get one, guys. There it is. Cool. Oren Singleton, the wide receiver, who was another one that was visiting this weekend from Eastern Michigan, I believe. So let me see if I can pull up his social media here. Okay. Here it is, guys. That's awesome. Hey, live right here while we're on the stream. a transfer commitment from Orrin Singleton. West Virginia adds a wide receiver, which we just saw that they needed. We were talking about it being a little bit thin there. They pick up Orrin Singleton from Eastern Michigan. So let's do a couple things here. Number one, let's pull back up this transfer portal tracker. And that's so funny, guys. Right on cue, as I was telling you guys, there's going to be plenty of these upcoming because West Virginia is going to add a lot of players to this roster. Right there it is. You add one while we're doing the stream. So let's go ahead and throw him here on the roster. On the transfer portal tracker, rather. Let me pull it up so you guys can see it here yet again as we have to throw another name on here, guys. That's awesome. Let's go. Let's go. Wide receiver, Orrin Singleton Jr. from Eastern Michigan. And we're going to pull up some of his stats momentarily now as well. And then I will get to some of your all's comments for in the stream, I promise. But obviously, got to focus on this. And I appreciate you guys mentioning it in chat there. Allow me to catch it. So we add Orrin Singleton Jr. So today we've added a defensive back and a wide receiver. And with the way these commits have rolled out, the fact that one came early today, one came later today, and we know that multiple people were on a visit, it could be a deal of silent commits. We've seen West Virginia utilize that in the past. Maybe they're going to do it again and try and stagger these announcements. And we also heard Rich Rod mention he wanted to stagger the announcements for the coaches. So wouldn't be surprised to see him want to do it for these transfers. So maybe West Virginia got multiple commitments with these guys visiting this weekend, and they're going to have announcements coming out over the coming days. Hopefully that's true. And if so, I'll be back with you guys a lot more often as I have been lately, for sure. And that's super exciting. Needed to add a receiver here. So glad that we could do it. Let's see here. He's got some, looks like he's got some highlights here. See if we can pull these up maybe. Share some of these highlights he has on his social media page of Orrin Singleton Jr. And I'll try and pull up his stats while they play. I'm not going to share the audio because it may have music on it and don't want to hit the copyright, but I'll play it through here though. Okay, so getting over the top there. Looks like he got some decent speed. And pull up some of his numbers and a little bit of his info here while that plays. Oh, wow. Okay, so it looks like he can take the top off, guys. It looks like he can take the top off, indeed. Okay, got some wiggle to him as well. I like this. I like this pickup, guys, from what I'm seeing here. Oh, look at that grab on the sideline. Let's see here. Yeah, it's some good stuff. Okay, let me share his profile here now. I like those highlights. Got me a little bit excited about this one, guys. Indeed, it really did. All right, so here's what we got. Orrin Singleton. Hey, from Clewiston, Florida. I used to live near there, actually. I lived in Punta Gorda for a little bit, not too far from there. I think my dad even worked in Clewiston for a period, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, he had 2 years of eligibility there at Eastern Michigan, so he's going to be his final year of eligibility here at WVU, and his stats there in his 1 year there averaged 10 yards per catch, 64 catches, 639 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So this is a good receiver that we're adding to the offense, guys, for West Virginia this year. Like that pickup, Orrin Singleton Jr. Live transfer portal update right there. That's awesome. That's awesome. So definitely they're going to be staggering these transfer commits out, guys, which is cool because give me, more days to cover and more days to chat with you all. And we get a couple here to talk about in this one, Jordy Scruggs and now Orrin Singleton as far as the transfer portal side. And then we got to talk about some additions to the coaching staff. And as I said earlier, both news on both of those are going to continue to come out, the coaching staff and the roster, and I'll continue to cover them both here. So be sure you're subscribed. And if you're in here live or in a playback, be sure hit that thumbs up button. See over 220 people in here now. I really appreciate that interaction. And speaking of that, let me go through and catch up on some of your all's comments. Won't be able to get to them all, but I'll try and pick out several of them here before we wrap up the stream before too much longer. Don't want to keep you guys too late. No, tomorrow's Monday. A lot of people got to work, myself included, but if anything news-wise comes out tomorrow, which I'm feeling like it probably will, I'll be back tomorrow night for another live stream, guys. But let me take a swig of this coffee, then I'll catch up on some comments. Okay, let's see. Derek said, heard Jeremiah Johnson is coming, but also saw he's only making $200K and doesn't have Power Conference experience currently. Any chance we can entice him to be a position coach? It's possible. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I do think it's interesting that, the update I shared earlier from Rivals on their article, that they do always state at the end of that update that his position's yet to be, announced. So it could maybe not be defensive coordinator, and they do have the money to spend. But if they are able to bring him in as a position coach and then bring in, a big time DC like a Zach Alley or somebody in him as well, man, you talk about a huge home run. That would be amazing. That would be really like unexpected pipe dream stuff, but that would be awesome if they were able to do it. Either way, if they get him as a DC, I would be happy. I think he's a brilliant defensive mind. Or if they get him as a position coach, I would be happy as well. I think he'd be a good addition to the staff in either format. I appreciate the question there, Derek. Edward Batten says, what about Napoleon's son, referencing Eugene Napoleon's son, obviously former Mountaineer running back, friend of the show here, previously had him on for a Country Roads conversation in the past, but I haven't, talked to Eugene in a while, haven't asked him, obviously, but I'm sure, and I heard him mention, I think in an interview we did with Mountaineer Paul, they would love to see Brandon Napoleon come, but haven't heard any news on that up to this point. But as we stated with the players and as we stated with the coaches, we know that the news on that's supposed to be staggered out as well. So, when that does come, maybe it's some stuff that's already known and they're just waiting to make announcements. And I would love to see him come. I believe he was safeties coach there at Jacksonville State, and he was on the 30 under 30, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be a big time get as well. Would love to see him come to WVU. So hopefully, Rich Rod's been in contact and maybe it'll happen. That would be a great one to see, but I'm not 100% sure, Edward, but it's what I'm hoping for. It's what I'm hoping to see for sure. Linda with another good point, as we were talking earlier about guys that could maybe be the offensive line coach. Now that we know Rick Trickett's not coming, Sean Clark would be, interesting hire. He was a hot name as a head coach for a while there, then obviously fell off towards the end of this tenure there at Appalachian State and was let go this year. So on the market, but he's a West Virginia native. And, he could have that OC title or at least offensive line coach or, the co-title, as Linda mentioned there. Great pull, Linda. You never know. It could happen. There's a lot of names that could be candidates for these jobs for sure. And old Haas with a good comment here. And this is how I kind of tend to feel about it as well. I think that, if Coach Rodriguez wanted Rod McDowell bad enough, he probably would have had him. And that's no knock on Marshall. I'm not trying to hate on him or anything, but I just feel like it's hard pressed to believe he would pick Marshall over WVU, even just knowing the fact that he would make more money at WVU. So I think that, there may be a plan there, which kind of, to me, maybe does signal a little bit of that Jawan Sider talk, to maybe be a OC / running backs coach. And that would be awesome if we could steal him away from Penn State. I would love that hire if it's possible for sure. I appreciate that. Channel member Shaq asking everybody to like, share, and subscribe. Yeah, if you guys would, that's awesome. Always hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. And if you're kind enough, copy and paste it to your social media, share it around so other Mountaineer fans can get in contact with it. But if you don't even have to go that far, if you hit the like button, that helps push it out so others will find it. But if you want to be cool like Shaq, have one of those WVU helmets beside your name in the chat there. Also get access to custom emojis, player grades videos, following WVU games, snap counts, depth chart projections. You can become a channel member here in Sports Monthly. We really appreciate that as well. But fast, easy, freeway, like and subscribe, as Shaq mentions there. Appreciate that. And you see him dropping some of those emojis in the chat there, and that's pretty cool. Appreciate you doing that. Let's see here. What else we got in the chat, guys? I'm trying to catch up here. Sorry, I'm way behind, but I wanted to get to the updates while everybody was in here before I called up on the chat and, just kind of touch up with you guys before we wrap up. So, you guys got any questions, comments, throw them in there after I catch up in the chat. Probably wrap up this one. Like I said, won't keep you guys too late. Linda Skidmore said, get Haas Hidgeny from TCU. I would love that. We do probably need to add a transfer quarterback just for competition's sake. And that would be an awesome one. He was higher rated and he's super fast, right? And you'd love to see those super fast QBs in a Rich Rod offense. So I would love to see him get in the mix. And then you'd have three, really good quarterbacks to run this offense, I think, because I think Nico can actually really do a good job in this offense. I've talked about Khalil Wilkins' stock going up. And then if you have Hedgeny, that would be three really good ones, not to mention the young guy, Scotty Fox, coming in, who could be a good fit as well. I definitely think that Rod probably will get a good quarterback no matter who it is. But, hey, that would be a big pickup. Nico plus Jaheim and Rod's offense is a deadly combo in old Haas's opinion, and I think it could be as well. Yeah, shout out to the B-ball team as well. Didn't get a chance to talk too much about that, but they got the win today despite obviously being injury riddled. Still haven't had Jaden Stone on the year. Tucker DeVries still out, and then I saw that Hansberry went down. Sounds like it's not going to be long term. Thank the Lord, because we can't afford another injury. But they still almost covered the spread with him going down early. The bench starting to show up, Eric says, and good to hear it. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I did listen to it on the radio. Trey Edwards says Dom could be the next Tavon Austin. Kibble's electric at Princeton. That's so funny you say that, Trey. Co-host here at the CRW, Steven, says the same thing. He compares him to Tavon all the time. Feels like he has that exact same type of talent, and certainly the speed is there. And from seeing him play, at the times I did get to watch a couple of Princeton games and see some of his highlights. I definitely agree. He's definitely electric. The speed is ridiculous. Gail Nicholson said Matt Bohr burned his bridge down. Yeah, I kind of feel the same. I'd be surprised to see him come back, but you never know. Stranger things have happened, I guess. Always got to throw that in there, but I would be shocked if it was Matt Moore as the offensive line coach. But I'll be interested to see who it is. Now we know that it won't be Rick Trickett. What's up, Silas? Good to see you, bro. He says hold the rope. Indeed. Buck Robinette said Farmer didn't show much this year. I agree, but I also think we didn't really play him and target him a ton in the ways that we should have. I know we hit him with a couple jet sweeps, a couple stick routes later in the season here, and then like the bowl game and stuff, but we never really targeted him on too many deep balls, which I think is probably really his forte with the speed that he has, and probably could have got him involved more, and maybe if so, he wouldn't have left. But nonetheless, we'll get to see him and face him and see what type of talent he has. He was highly rated. Hopefully, it's not one of those things where it comes back to bite us, having to play him in conference. But I do agree we didn't get to see a lot from him, Buck. We didn't get to see a lot from him. Whether that was usage rate or just whatever, didn't get to see a ton from him. And then I see, of course, this one, the comments started coming in about Oren Singleton. I appreciate all you guys that shared that. Raven, Oren, Chief Fan, everybody that shared the stuff about Oren Singleton. Let me get that update in. Appreciate all you guys there. Chris Filippo is going to be a star safety, may grow into a linebacker. Linda Skidmore says, yeah, I'm interested to see where he fits, because I know when the previous staff was recruiting him to be at that spear spot, which we kind of talked about there with Zay Jennings, when we were going through the roster and kind of who's left here at WVU. So it'd be interesting to see what he does, what they do with him, if they choose to put him in a safety spot, or if they try to put him in linebacker and let him grow into there. Be interested to see, but I do think he does have some talent. I agree with that. And it's not okay. Golf says Rich said he would not release all the names at once. Yep, exactly what he said about the coaches, and I think they're doing the same with some of the transfer commits, it looks like, as well. Overworked, underpaid, said the piss is hot. Let's go. Hey, red hot piss. 2 transfer commits, including 1 while I'm live. Oh, man. Yeah, that's piss that's burning right there. Just like Rich's. Yeah, 64 grabs is good, Mountaineer Dad 31. Indeed, I'm impressed with those highlights, too, that we threw up there from his Twitter page, for sure. Joe says we have a huge transfer commit coming soon. I can't put it out there, but you are going to be very, very happy. Oh, come on, Joe. Come on. You can't just drop that and not let us know who it's going to be. I know we did have several visits. I hope it's, I'd love to see it be Cam Vaughn or somebody like that. That'd be great. Huge rumors about a QB committing. It says that, Shannon Miller. Whoever mentioned Haas Hedgeny, if it's him, that'd be insane. I mean, they have done a good job not letting a lot of these visits go public, so you never know what could happen. Blake Green says Scotty Fox is a sleeper, reminds him a lot of Garrett Green, has some moxie, could be a stud in a couple of years. He does kind of remind me of Garrett Green a little bit too. Even the way he looks, like the hair and similar everything, kind of to Garrett Green when Garrett Green first came into WU when he was a freshman. So I definitely could see that. Jameson Harteen said, I'm close to the Pavula family. I know he's gotten a huge NIL offer from WV. Well, I mean, that's good to hear the WV's out there trying to get guys, if that is the case, but I do believe he committed to Missouri. I saw earlier tonight. Yeah, Derek shares that as well. Pavula did commit to Missouri. Raven Grady says Chris Henry Jr. Hey, still fingers crossed, Raven. Still got the fingers crossed that ends up happening here for the class of 2026. We'll see what happens. Jameson stating it's not a done deal on Derek, despite the commitment to Missouri. So we'll see. You never know what could happen until the dotted line is the sign on the dotted line. You never know what could happen. But we definitely are going to add a QB. I wouldn't be mad about that. Wouldn't be mad about Hedgney, and we'll see what direction they choose to go. But I appreciate everybody that tuned in here and chatted and shared some questions, comments, and everyone else that was in here as well live. Whether you watch live or in a playback, like I said, hit the thumbs up button before you head out. Get ready to wrap up this one, the 12-22 transfer portal update part 2 after the one I put out earlier about a departure. But here we get a duo of incoming transfers, one on the defensive side with Jordy Scruggs. And then while we're live, we get the commitment of Orrin Singleton Jr. as well, the wide receiver from Eastern Michigan. The highlights look really promising, and I'm excited about that pickup for WVU as well. So we've covered that, as well as the additions to the coaching staff that are reported in the receivers coach Ryan Garrett and tight end coach Michael Nice-Wonder. But I appreciate you guys coming in for this live stream. I'll be covering the coaching staff as it builds and the roster as it builds as well here on the CRW. So subscribe here if you haven't already. Be live with you guys most likely, it looks like, again tomorrow. I'm expecting news to come out very shortly with transfer commits and probably staff members as well as we approach this upcoming week. It's going to be a fun one with a lot of news on the Mountaineer football side of things. So stick with me here. I'll be covering it, and I appreciate you guys tuning in with me along the way as I continue to do so. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.